All right. Well, good afternoon, folks, or good day, whatever time you might be watching the recording of this. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to be talking about designing digital assignments in Canvas. So I have no sort of PowerPoint for this because, well, we can just actually look in Canvas and have something a little more interactive. So I'm going to go ahead and I always click the wrong thing. Share. All right. Again, welcome to all the folks who were just in the last session. I'm glad you decided to join me for a second. Hopefully this will be just as informative, or if you didn't like the last one, hopefully this will be way more informative. All right, so I'm in a pretty empty Canvas course right now. I've got almost nothing in here. This is just my little Canvas playground where I can go in and mess with stuff. And I like to start off with basically, delete this assignment. Start off with creating an assignment and kind of walk through how we could create an assignment and how we should create an assignment. So there's kind of two ways to go about this here. And I'm going to start with just how we could do it. And this is going to be my lorem ipsum assignment. And what I really want to do for this assignment is I want everybody to read this document, and I'll put a link to that document in just a second. But I also want them to look at this PowerPoint. And I also really want them to watch this video. Now, what document do I want? There's a lot of ways, and I would even almost say there's just about too many ways to insert something in this view in Canvas. But I guess the nice thing about that is you kind of, wherever you decide to try, it'll work to put something in there. So I could click on insert and I could go into document and I could upload a document, or if I have a document that I've already uploaded, I can grab my document and throw it in. So I want them to read this document. I also really want them to look at this PowerPoint. So I'm going to insert. Now, this one's a little tricky. Is a PowerPoint media or a document? PowerPoint is a document. If you try to upload it as media, it'll get upset at you. So I already uploaded it into my stuff. So I'm going to go into my course documents and put this PowerPoint. Again, those of you who were here for the last session, you've already gotten to see both slides of this Zoom best practices PowerPoint, and it was great. And a video. There's a video I really want them to watch. So I'm going to paste my hyperlink. Now, you're going to see something interesting when I put the video hyperlink in. And it immediately throws in this weird box that says, now I'm using a YouTube video, that says your link will be replaced with an embedded YouTube video. Once upon a time, Canvas did not do this, and you had to go in and you had to tell it that you actually wanted an embedded video. It does it for you now, so you don't have to worry about setting that on your own. So that's great. I'm not going to focus too much on points or any of this type of stuff, what type of submission it is right now. We'll come back to some of these other things in just a moment. But for right now, I would just like to look at what my assignment actually looks like. And as you can see, I have read this document. There's the name of my document. Look at this PowerPoint. There's the PowerPoint. And watch this video. And I could either click that and it'll take me out to a new YouTube video, or I could click right here on the little preview and I can watch it right here. Now, I'm a pretty big fan of keeping as much as possible in this box right here. One of the most dangerous things as an instructor is this little plus button right up here at the top next to the tab that the students are currently in. because this little plus button is the gateway to Netflix, it's the gateway to Amazon, it's the gateway to playing games online, to checking your horoscope, to reading about what exactly is going on with Brad Pitt. Just that button we want to avoid. So if we can keep students engaged in this box right here, then that'll be a good thing. Because again, remember, the moment I do this, I immediately start to go, wow, lorem ipsum and what it means, this really is a boring assignment. English, what if English were 100% Germanic? That sounds way more interesting than the video that my professor wanted me to watch. I'm going to go watch that video instead. YouTube is designed to show you things that you are going to find interesting over here on this side to keep you watching. So if we can try to keep students inside of Canvas for this, that's a great thing. So I like this little video right here. I like that it offers that. I like that it provides us that. You'll notice next to these, for starters, this is a terrible name for a file. This is exactly the name of this file when I downloaded it, but it's awful. This is an okay name. I at least have an idea of what I'm going to be clicking on here. But make sure your files have good names, especially if the students are going to be seeing them. Now, I'm going to go back in. Let's not edit it just yet. We'll edit in just a second. Right in here, if you see this little, looks like a piece of paper with a magnifying glass on it, you have the option to preview the document. Now, this is a really nice feature. Without having to click on it and download it or go to some external site or load an external application, I can go ahead and inside of Zoom, preview the document. That's great. And if I scroll down, I can preview the PowerPoint. Zoom has a built-in PowerPoint previewer. Look at that. There's both pages of my slideshow presentation from the last meeting. What a nice presentation. But it could be better than this, because are the students going to know to click on that little microscope, or that little eyeglass next on the piece of paper? Maybe, maybe not. So let's make this better. Let's try to do something a little more like what the video did for us. Let's go in and edit this. So from the very beginning, I would like to start off with read this document. If I click on this link right here, you'll see that link options opens up. I'm going to click on my link options, and by default, it just uses the name of the file that they are going to be viewing. That's not a great name, so I'd actually like to change it to say something else. I would maybe even like to say this. And then I could just say, read this. Oh, I did all of them as part of the text. Read this document, and they can just click on it. Or I could change it to say, lorem doc. Now they have a little bit better of a link to click on. Doesn't look quite so scary. So that's cleaned up already. But also under link options, I can change what it links to. Now, I probably don't want to change that if I already intentionally put in there what belongs. I can disable the inline preview. I guess there's probably a time and a place that you would want to do this. I have not yet come across what that time or that place is, so I don't know why you would need to turn off the inline preview. It's hard to say. What I do really like is automatically open as an inline preview. Preview displays only after saving. I'm going to turn that on. It's going to automatically create an inline preview for me. I like that idea. Now, I guess the reason that you would want to not turn this on, or maybe even would want to disable it, is if you have a really long document. If for some reason you sent a document to your students that you want them to view, and it's 600 pages long, maybe you don't want it to be able to be previewed inline, and you definitely don't want it to be done automatically. Now, I would say at that point, if you're sharing documents with your students that are more than, I don't know, 6 or 7 pages through here, you're probably sharing it with them the wrong way. That's probably more something that you want to have, a little bit different format than just dumping inside of the assignment. But I'm going to tell it to open it in line. This PowerPoint, I have the same thing, link options. I can go in and I can change the name of it. I'm just going to leave it like it is. and I'm going to automatically open as an inline preview. Again, remembering the preview will only display after saving. What that means is we don't already see it right here. It's not until I hit this word save down here. And it'll take it just a second. Oh, looks like I messed up on my Word doc. I forgot to leave it checked. So I'm going to hit save, and you will see, takes it just a second to load. I've got read this document so students can read it in line. Look at this PowerPoint, students can view it in line, and watch this video. They can view the video without having to go outside to anything that is bound to cause them a distraction. So that's one of the very most basic nice things about whenever you add content to an assignment. I also am a big fan of when you're thinking about how you're creating your assignments. One of the early schools of thought, whenever people first started really using Canvas, was that it was really great that it had all of these, we'll call them shelves. All these shelves where you could put things. You had a shelf for assignments, you had a shelf for your discussions, you had a shelf for your grades, you had a shelf for your files. So the thought was, okay, I have a file that I need for my students to have access to. Let's put that in the files, and then I'll give them a link to that. And then I'll go to the assignments and give them their assignments, and then tell them to go look in the files for the file, then I'll give them a grade in the grades. When in reality, I think a better practice is probably, as much as possible, if there is an assignment that has resources attached to it, put those in your assignment so that the students don't have to go looking for them elsewhere. The more times they have to click somewhere else, they have to look elsewhere for their materials, the more easy it is for them to get distracted, the more easy it is for them to get lost, or simply just not remember what they're looking for. Dump all that stuff into the actual assignment, and then you won't have students coming back to you later asking, where was fill in the blank resource located? Just always put your stuff right inside the assignment. I'm going to go back into editing my assignment again, and you'll notice it's shrunk back down again because it doesn't do those document or PowerPoint previews in here, and it just does that miniature preview of the YouTube video. I'm going to come back to this box and some of the options that are up here. Let's talk real quick about what's underneath. You can decide how many points this is worth. You can create assignment groups. I have a group called assignments that it can go in right now. I can display my grade as points, letter grade, GPA scale, etc. Now this is one of those things, especially right here, that if you ever feel like getting super creative on, before you get too creative, I would definitely talk to your department chair and see what the standard is that y'all are using, because there's probably a preset standard. You can even have assignments that don't count towards their grade. That's a pretty useful one if you're just wanting to do a checkpoint. If you're just wanting to create a quick assignment that maybe you're just going to ask for some feedback on something. You want the students to do it, but it doesn't have to be a part of their grade. Submission type, what type of submission? Are you going to have an online submission? Online submissions are, they can enter text into a text box, they can input a URL, they can do a media recording or upload a file. On paper, that means they're not doing anything on the computer. They're actually turning in a paper to you, and you will have to go in and just determine whether or not they actually completed it. Now, if you're going to have students turn in, do a presentation, let's say, and you wanted to not have them have to actually turn something in, you just wanted to be able to grade their presentation, you could select on paper. Now, I would probably choose online, have them turn in the files that they're going to be using for their presentation, and then just grade accordingly, but know that is an option. External tool, let's just not even touch this right now because this is a 100 level course. Let's focus on online and on paper. This is a group assignment. If you're wanting something to be a group assignment, you can set group names. You can allow the students to self-sign up for the groups, or you can have them automatically split into a certain number of groups. You can assign group leaders, all kinds of great stuff that you can do. Group work really works well in Canvas. Peer review, anonymous grading, anonymous instructor annotations, all options you can turn on, who you're assigning it to, etc. All pretty basic stuff that you'll know how to use. Back up here, just to talk about some of the things that you may or may not have used before and you might want to check out. Right here, this insert button actually is all just a whole bunch of stuff that you can see down here, with I think the one exception being the horizontal line. Everything else is in here. You can do equation here or equation there, table here or table there, media here or media there. You can see it's not that useful of a place. If we just moved horizontal line to right here, we could get rid of this whole menu option. Again, same with format. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is repetitive. You've got all of your format options up and down. You can check your word count. A few more options for tables whenever you're looking in here. But right in here, now this is one of those things that if you're teaching a math course, hopefully by now you've already caught on to this, but there are all kinds of math tools you can use here to make fancy equations. There are also the Greek letters, operators, relationships, arrows, delimiters, and some miscellaneous stuff. Now, I'm not sure at which point you would ever be teaching a class that you actually needed to have suits from a game of cards, but they're there. I guess maybe if you're teaching game theory, they might come in useful. You can build tables. You can build tables. It's very similar to what you would see if you were using Microsoft Word or Google Docs or any of those types of things. You can just go in and select how big of a table you want to be used, and it will automatically generate the table for you. Then there's a number of tools there. All kinds of neat stuff that it's easy to kind of overlook and forget that, gee, I really could use these things and make my assignments a little more heavy on the information. Links, images, media, and documents. I'm not going to go through all those. You know what they are. You know that they're there. Use them. This little guy right here, apps. Looks like a plug because, well, maybe they could have used the name plugins. But these are things that you can add in to your assignments. Right now, currently set up, got Box, Commons Favorites. You can find and share course content here. Films on Demand. GitHub has a plugin. Panopto, PlayPosit. You can see all through here. There's a number of things that you can add in as well. Now, this is one of those things that is maybe even better suited for like a computer use 101, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it here because this is something that I'm kind of passionate about and I don't understand why it's not better used. And that is this little guy right here. The font size, and then go in one to the type of font that you are using. This is super underutilized and I'm really not sure why. Reason I'm so big on it is I could have an assignment basically like this. And it looks okay, and it's something the students can see, and the students can read, and the students can use. But as a student, you would probably appreciate it if things were a better design, if things were more meaningful. So if I could go in and I could say stuff like assigned reading. Now, when I used to teach, I always called any videos that were mandated for my students, I always called those assigned reading as well, because, well, I'm treating it the same way. If it's assigned to you to intake that media, then we're just going to call it assigned reading. So I'm going to call this my assigned reading. And I'm going to have another one that says instructions. And these are going to be the actual instructions for what I want the students to do. And I'm going to say, after completing your assigned reading, you are to write a fill in the blank. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to bump it up to the exact same. I did this one as a heading 3. So I'm going to bump this one up to a heading 3 as well. If I want one up at the top that says lorem assignment details, I want that a little bigger, so I'll make that a 2. These are not the same as links, so I'm actually going to make them heading 4s. This is just regular paragraph text. All right. Believe it or not, the benefits that you will get from having these things properly formatted really will make a difference when it comes to your students. Don't ignore this, but just use what's pre-built here. It really will help you to just use what's pre-built and not have to change everything and have to figure out, what do I want to make bold? What do I want to make what size? Just go with the pre-built settings, build an outline for it just like you would want your students to do to make something that looks nice in the end. Put that extra time in and you will come up with an assignment that is just way better looking and more easily navigated by your students in the end. Oh, this is not a group assignment. That's why it was getting all worried. So you can see right there, I have made it to where I have a little bit more interest in the text, just the styles that I have used. I have embedded things to where the students aren't having to jump outside, and I've set it up to where they can, it was already set up to where you can preview the video inside. If the students want to actually download the documents, they can still download them. If the students want to get rid of that preview, they can get rid of it. I like to have it open by default just because I feel like having a wall of text hit the students is often going to make them less interested in what you're showing. If you're going to have media as a part of what you are showing your students, put that media up front to where it is more interesting for the students and they're going to be more quickly engaged. Now, we could talk about a whole lot of things in Canvas, but the big thing here is talking about assignments. So we're going to stick with assignments, but I'm going to go away from the assignments tag for just a moment to modules. Now, I'm going to remove these real quick. Get rid of all of this. Now, you've probably been through some Canvas training that talked to you about modules. Why do I need to use modules? Should I use modules? Do I have to use modules? The long story short is, yes, you need to use modules. Why do you need to use modules? Because, well, we work better when things are sorted, and it's the best way to sort things. So I'm going to create a module. I'm going to call mine History of Made Up Words. And to that module, I'm going to add an assignment. What assignment? The lorem ipsum assignment. And I'm going to indent it 1 level. Indentation, again, is one of those things that's easy to skip over and it's easy to think, oh, I put everything in there, it's fine. Take the extra ½ second to select indent 1 level. It makes a better visual presentation for your students. And when you have a better visual presentation for your students of what they see in Canvas, that means you have reduced number of times that you get emails from students asking where to find something. Add item. I'm going to add also to my module a couple of files. I'm going to add my file sample, indent it 2 levels, and I'm going to add in my PowerPoint, and it'll also be indented 2 levels as well. And you can see, just like that, under the History of Made Up Words module, I have the lorem ipsum assignment, I have the file, that's the .doc, and I have the Zoom Best Practices PowerPoint that I had put on the assignment right here. Now, why do I want to put these both in modules and in the assignment? Couldn't I just have made that assignment, put everything in modules and told the students, go look for it? Yeah, you sure could. But again, when it comes to teaching a course with online content, when it comes to assignments and grades, the two biggest things we are trying to avoid is having to talk to our students. Now, I know we love our students, right? We teach because we want to interact with students. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to have those conversations about where do I find things. That's not us moving forward. That's not the students moving forward. Those are the conversations we're trying to avoid. That way we can have time for the important conversations. Put the material in the assignment itself and put the material in a module, sort it out the way it's supposed to be, and you will not have to deal with those issues with students not being able to find their stuff. If you were a student, you would appreciate it being done for you. If you're a faculty, you will appreciate having done it for yourself because your students will be able to focus on what is truly important. Okay, let's jump back into the idea of assignments just really quickly. One of the things, and I'm going to assume, again, that almost all of you have used Canvas, but I don't want to assume that everyone has, and I don't want to assume that everyone who has used it remembers everything. Maybe you didn't teach any classes this summer. Maybe you even were traveling to Spain in the spring when all of this took place and you missed out on teaching in Canvas when this whole COVID thing started. Who knows? Just in case this is your first time around this, or maybe you've forgotten, or maybe you've just struggled with this in the past, it never hurts to be reminded about the publish button. You'll notice back in this module right here, I have green check marks. These say that they have been published, and I have this grayed out no symbol. That means it has not been published. Make sure when you have an assignment that you are ready for the students to do, that you actually publish the assignment. Until it is published, it is not available for the students. So make sure you set your assignment as published. Also, on the subject of assignments, the thing that goes into assignments from the beginning is the resources. Don't make your students search for their resources. Now, I'm not suggesting you do the research for your students. Students should still be doing their research. But when you already have the resource, put the resource into the assignment so they don't have to search for it. That's what goes into the assignment. Resources and description of what the assignment is. What comes out of the assignment, and I don't mean what the students turn in, I mean your part on the back end is grading. If you have not used SpeedGrader for grading your assignments, check out SpeedGrader. What does SpeedGrader do? Well, it's going to be difficult because there are no active students in this course that I can grade. So I can't actually grade anyone. It's never going to load. What SpeedGrader does is it essentially takes and gives you a digital amalgam of having a stack of papers in front of you that you can flip through and you can grade one by one. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, because a traditional format of students turning in files digitally would be going to a student's folder, figuring out where the student put it, finding the right item, and grading it. It's a very slow process. It's very arduous. It's not the right way that you want to go through things. SpeedGrader allows you to easily go through and have essentially a stack of assignments right in front of you. They're all the same assignment that you can be speedy as you go through assigning grades to them. SpeedGrader really is the fastest way to grade your assignments. If you have been using the traditional method of going into looking at the completed assignments, or even going into your grade book to complete the grades, I highly recommend checking out SpeedGrader. Not that there's anything wrong with other ways of entering grades in, but SpeedGrader really is useful, especially for those quick assignments. Okay. What questions do we have at this point about assignments? What questions do we have about making better assignments? What questions do we have just in general?
So we got a really interesting question. Will you explain specifically how group assignments, explain specifically how group assignments work so well in Canvas. Can you show any actual group assignments?
Sure thing, we'll look at that. So it'll be a little tricky because like I said, I don't have students in this course, so I can't actually assign folks, but I can go through the majority of it. Whenever I say this is a group, sorry, I didn't mean to click on it quite yet. Whenever I say this is a group assignment, it does pop up right away. It's going to ask for group set name. And it's going to ask, do I want to allow self sign up, how students are going to get split up. So I'm going to call this group set name test. Self sign up. I do not want to allow self sign up because I don't necessarily trust my students to sign up into the groups that I want them in. I'm going to set them up because I know better than anyone. Well, that's what I decided this time. Group structure, split students into how many groups, or do I just want to create them manually? I think I know best, so I'm going to create it manually. So save. Now, right here, it's going to ask if you want to assign grades to each student individually. This is one of those things that if you are going to be doing group work, I would definitely recommend either having grades assigned to each student individually or having 2 grades for each group assignment. In case you're wondering why that is, it's that whole thing of, you know, some students are working together on a project, but don't necessarily deserve the same grade. So I would either assign them individually or have, you know, 1 grade is for your group, you know, the group outcome, 1 grade is for your individual contribution. So that's up to you. I like just doing each student individually. If you're going to be doing a group assignment, I highly recommend requiring peer reviews. You can do peer reviews even if it's not a group assignment. You'll notice if I turn this off, peer review is still an option. It can be good even outside of group assignments, but I would definitely turn it on for peer reviews. You can manually assign peer reviews or you can automatically assign peer reviews. I've done everything manual so far, so I'm gonna keep it on there. You can even have peer reviews being done anonymously. Now, whenever the students get broken up into their groups, and I think this is when it's going to, trying to see when it's going to give me the error about not having students. It's not going to yell at me yet. I wish I had a course with students that I could show that. But basically what you would do is, actually, hang on 1 second. I think I have something I can show you. Because I was looking at this just the other day.
Okay, so we got a little clarification on the question.
Okay.
I guess really the question is just kind of what's the argument for the benefits of doing a digital group assignment, and why maybe they're better and easier to implement or more successful than in-person group assignments?
Okay, that's a good question. So one of the biggest things, and I couldn't find, there was a visual walkthrough that I had found that was talking all about how to actually break your students up. I wish I could find it / had students to break them up. But how does it get better online? So for one thing, you can create assignments specifically for one individual group and you can tailor the assignment to the group. I'll show you right here. If I go into who it is assigned to, I can actually select just one of the groups to assign it to. So you can have assignments that are specifically tailored for the groups. You can also more easily meet with the groups about their specific, you can see the group specific work a little bit easier than in a traditional sense. I'm thinking in terms of things like having a group work on, we'll go with the most basic group project, which is also my least favorite group project, and that is group presentation, right? Group presentation, that's the thing that I'm assuming most of us, if we are still in the field of education as professionals, we were the ones that did the group presentation and everyone else stood there and watched as we presented our own PowerPoint. The good news is with something like Canvas, number one, one of the things that makes it easier is that that assigning grades individually becomes a little bit easier, because whenever you're going through and grading, you can actually compare them against the rubric, which has marks for what the students have actually done, what the students have actually completed on their own, their individual efforts towards it. But also that peer review tool, which you can do peer review outside of something like Canvas, but peer review is often hard to gather and it is hard to enforce. I just think the thing that makes groups a little easier in Canvas is the fact that the peer review is built in, the ability to individualize grades is built in, the ability to determine who is in a group and have a place that that group record is kept is, again, all in the same place. And if you want, and this is actually probably sometimes more useful if you don't know your students, to do that automatic setup of peer review and who is in the groups. That way, if a student comes back to you later and says, hey, it's totally unfair that you put me in a group with these people, you can say, I'm sorry, it was automatically assigned. Hopefully you learned good things because of working with that group. So those are some of the benefits that Canvas gives. It's not necessarily that any of those are things that you can't do without Canvas, just that Canvas sort of puts all of those tools in one place that helps you be more successful with group projects. While we're on the subject of group projects, not that this necessarily has anything to do with digital assignments in Canvas, but I did do a session on how to do successful group projects this spring. And I might as well mention it while we're here. On the subject of group projects, more than anything, if you want your group projects to be successful, make them something that an individual can't do. Make it something that it has to be a group of people in order to get it done. Whether it's scope, whether it's scale, or whether it's multiple deliverables all put together that each person has to do. One of the biggest keys to a successful group project is simply making it something that one or two people cannot do. A prime example would be this entire set of teachings that is going on right now, being put on by CTE and OIT and company. Not only would it be extremely hard for one person to do all these teachings, there literally is not a way that one person could do that because there are multiple teachings going on at the same time. Make your assignments so big that students have to work together to do them when you're doing a group project.
Okay. I think that also just the assigning grades to each student individually sounds like it will also really reinforce that.
Yep.
They know that they'll be held accountable on their own. Real quick, because we're running out of time, another question: what can students do if you put like a link to a box folder in an assignment? Will it just open that box folder up with the materials? Kind of what does that look like?
Let's do it. I like talking, but even more I like showing. So I'm going to go to box, and it's going to probably pop up a window somewhere else. This is when I should be getting the pop-up for, there we go. Select the button click the button below to select your content. I'm just going to go in and select this Excel sheet, choose access type, people with the link, people in your company, people in this folder. The box sharing is not as exciting as it sounds. It is this right here. It is just a link, and if I go to my link options, you will see it as a link to the box folder. So let's take a look at what it sounds, what it looks like once it's done. There it is. It's just a link. When I click on it, it takes me to Box, and you can view it there. Now, I don't know for certain if you can link directly to a folder. I can check that. I know if you go to Box and you grab the folder link from Box, you can put that link into Canvas. I personally don't use the Box app inside Canvas very often for this exact reason right here. It kind of always seems a little slow to respond, and I usually just have Box opened up in another folder somewhere. So let's pick, yeah, I cannot actually pick a folder. Oh, I can.
Would it allow for students to contribute files to a box? So say you were like, I don't know if this is exactly what you mean, Cheryl, but say you were like, submit your responses to this box folder and you put the link to the folder. Could they edit it?
So long as you had it set up to where they could, yes, you could. But again, I don't know if there's necessarily a benefit to using this box button here. For those of you who have set up a Zoom session in Canvas, there are some benefits to using inside Canvas Zoom access because it automatically, it's there for your students. It is set up around your class. There's not necessarily a benefit to using the Box app in here other than just going to a Box and getting a link to the folder. But as far as do students turn in to, like, is there like a box drop that gets put in here? No, that's actually whenever you would get into this submission type external tool. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have never used the external tool for Box, so I don't even know that ours is set up to do that. It should be, but I have not actually played around with that.
Well, I think also just thinking maybe if the link to the folder is there where you want them to put it, and then as long as you add your class emails to that box folder ahead of time, then they should be able, with edit permissions, they should be able to edit and add to the folder, not just download.
Yep. There is also, while we're on the subject, I'm going to pull it up. Depending on the file size, you don't necessarily always want to do this, but there is a way that you can have email uploads available to where your students can actually send an email to a Box folder. Now that gets totally outside of Canvas at that point, but there is a unique, your Box folder does actually have or can have a unique email address that the students can just mail it to that email address and it's in your Box folder. Then they don't have to worry about doing anything other than just emailing it and it's there. So that is another alternative if you are a Box person. There's Box, there's Canvas, there's OneDrive, there's, depending on what school you're in, some of the programs have, their own personal storage options that they are using. So there's lots of options out there. I often get questions about which one is the best. And the best one is the one that works for you. Use it consistently. If you're a Box person, be a Box person. Don't switch halfway through to something else. If you're a turn everything in on Canvas person, be a turn everything in on Canvas person. Don't switch halfway through. Again, more than anything, you want to minimize those 30 minutes before the deadline emails and calls from your students saying, I can't figure out how to turn this in. So just be consistent with how your students turn in your assignments.
All right, and I think we are out of time.
All right. I appreciate you all coming. Jennifer, Merlin, I appreciate both of you assisting us on this call. To all of you, thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful fall semester. Any questions, feel free to contact your local ATSD or anyone from OIT, CTE. More than happy to help you out. Best of luck, folks.